Most of the time, being home alone means that you can get some downtime and enjoy relaxing. But for some people, what should be a quiet opportunity to themselves soon turns into a terrifying experience as they realize that they're not alone. Taken from first-hand accounts of Redditors, the following are real events that happened. Here are 10 scary real home alone stories. Number 10 is the babysitter. One night, a babysitter was looking after 2 children for a couple that she knew. The children were in bed by 9 p.m., and she was sitting down to watch some television until the parents came home. That was when she noticed the reflection in the television screen. She saw a tall figure standing in the back of the room behind her, looking at her. Terrified, she slowly turned around, but the figure was gone. She ran upstairs to check on the kids, who were quietly sleeping in their beds. When the parents returned home, they assured her that there was nothing to worry about. The babysitter was paid and left the home. However, as she drove away, she looked up and saw the same tall figure watching her, waving from the window. Number 9 is the Grinner. When Redditor M. Soup was 19 years old, she was left alone in her parents' house for a weekend. On the first night, she drank too much, and while in an emotional state, decided to reinvent herself and shave her hair like Britney Spears. When she came out of the bathroom, she saw something unusual. A piece of paper was sitting on a table in the hallway. Opening it up, the paper had a message on it which read, "I was going to leave you a note, but I see that you are here." Terrified, the girl ran into her room, but when she went inside, she saw a man standing there, his face obscured by hair, grinning at her. Thankfully, she made it out alive. As it turned out, the man ended up being someone that she had dated 3 years previous. He had heard that she was leaving to go to college soon and had broke into her house to see her. Number 8 is the party upstairs. When the opportunity to rent a basement apartment directly below a friend's house came up, one internet poster was excited to move in. That excitement, however, soon turned to dread. His friend's family were socially active and often had family parties upstairs. One day, while he was doing some homework in his room, the tenant heard noises coming from his friend's home above. There were voices and a lot of jumping around. It sounded almost like they were dancing. Unable to concentrate, he texted his friend and asked to come up and join them. However, his blood ran cold when his friend texted back saying that he and his family were away on a trip. Fearing for his life, the tenant ran away from the house. Looking back, he could see no lights were on. The house seemed deathly quiet, and he was left to ponder what exactly he had heard. Number 7 is Let Me In. It's not unusual to convert a garage into an extra room, but for one Redditor, he probably wishes his parents hadn't bothered. At the time, he was living in a room that was just 10 years old at the time. Usually he would have been left with a sibling, but for a few hours on this occasion, he was completely alone. While playing in his room, he suddenly heard the sound of someone rhythmically tapping their fingers on the second door which led outside. When the boy plucked up enough courage to investigate, he saw a man standing outside the garage room. "Let me in, love," he said. "I'm cold and hungry. Don't you want to be nice to your neighbor?" The boy ran and hid, terrified by the man outside. When the parents arrived home, the man was gone, and the boy never found out who he really was and what he wanted. Number 6 is isolation. Community is important. It can make us feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves. But for some, isolation trumps community. Why risk having bad neighbors? Instead, such people search out lonely places to think, read, and to find themselves. That's what Redditor Shatterly did. They intended on spending 6 months in a remote location in New Hampshire a quarter of a mile from the nearest neighbor. During their time there, Shatterly never saw anyone else and was enjoying the peace and quiet. That all changed one morning when they stepped outside and saw something terrifying on their truck. During the night, a layer of frost had formed over the truck. Someone had been to the cabin and had written in the frost on the back windows of the vehicle the words, "I watch you." Number 5 is the college apartment. While living in a college apartment, one Redditor was left home alone for the weekend as their roommate was away for a few days. On one of the nights, suddenly a loud bang was heard. It sounded like wood being bashed against wood. Thinking they must have left a window open and that it was banging shut in the wind, the Redditor went to check where the noise was coming from. The windows, however, were all shut. Confused and a little freaked out, the Redditor looked around the apartment. That's when they found the thick wooden panel which accessed the attic from a hallway. It had been pulled up. Now terrified, the person ran to the room and barricaded the door. When it was finally safe to come out, they made a frightening discovery. The bedroom door was covered and smeared in bloody handprints. Number 4 is It Time? Some Home Alone experiences take on a decidedly supernatural turn. That was the case with Redditor Captain Kershaw's frightening encounter one night when he was alone. He was in his house when the phone rang. When he answered, he heard the voice of a very elderly old lady. The voice said, "Tell Essie it is time to come home now." Although he kept telling the elderly lady that she had dialed the wrong number, she was adamant that the message be passed on. Racking his brains, the man couldn't think who Essie was until it suddenly clicked. His grandmother's name was Esther. 2 hours later, he received a phone call that his grandmother had passed away in her sleep. As it turns out, Esther's own mother had died when she was 16, 60 years previous, and she always referred to her daughter as Essie. Number 3 is Hide and Seek. Hide and Seek is a game we all played as kids. It can be great fun, but when your parents aren't around, sometimes it can lead you into a dark and frightening place. For one 11-year-old, Hide and Seek brought them close to something beyond the veil. While his parents were away, the 11-year-old was kept entertained by his siblings who told him to hide somewhere. Thinking that under a bed would be as good a place to hide as any, he climbed under his sister's bed and waited to be found. And something indeed did find him. As he was curled up in the dark, the chilling laughter of an unknown young girl came from behind him. When he turned around, the boy saw that he was alone. After that, he ran out of the room, and the game of hide and seek had come to an early, terrifying end. Number 2 is The Tourist. One Redditor lived on a picturesque street in her home city, which was over 200 years old, and was often visited by tourists during the day. She had become accustomed to seeing tourists in the street, and because her living room was at street level, they would often stare into her home momentarily. One night, however, this was taken to new, intrusive heights. The girl entered her living room and looked out into the darkness, but staring back at her through the window was a man's face. Disturbed by this, she started closing the blinds, and when she did so, the man's expression changed to one filled with anger and hate. This then quickly changed once more into a wide, leering grin. He then backed away from the window and disappeared. And number 1 is The Visitor. A woman named Jane was living in a remote Appalachian farm during the late 1990s. She lived there with a small group of people. A neighbor told her that the farm was haunted by a man who stayed there in the 1930s. One night during a terrible winter, while she was alone, Jane awoke to see the outline of a ghost standing in the doorway of her room. It stared at her and then left. Days later, another woman on the farm said it came into her room. Months later, the body of a local handyman who did odd jobs around the farm was found to have been frozen in the snow. Jane and the others soon realized that they hadn't seen a ghost at all. The handyman had broken into their home and entered their rooms as they slept when they were alone. If the snow hadn't killed him, who knows what he would have done next?